Welcome to Life Insurance Today. I'm your host, Edward Pritchett, and we are here to bring you information that's going to help you as a life insurance agent grow not only your personal production, but potentially grow and do some mind-blowing things to your business. I'm here with veteran agent, and I don't get to say this that often because most of the times I'm talking to these agents who they've only been in this industry for like 3, 4, 5 years. Finally, I have someone. I've been in the industry for 15 years. Chris, you've been in this industry for 20 years.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing. In his first decade, best year, $170,000. Not bad. People would be pretty excited about that. In his second decade, because of some changes that we're going to talk about today, best year so far, over $700,000. And this year, 2024, we have our sights on the million. Is that?
We do. We do.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Stay tuned. Pay attention. Get the notepad out. Let's take some notes. We'll be right back with Chris Cook on Life Insurance Today. All right. I am joined by the Chris Cook. You may be interested in hearing from him because you're like, wait, he went from like 170,000 to 709. How's he doing this? Well, Chris, let's just jump into it, right? I mean, we've been around this industry for a while. Like, you are from the Knoxville, and I don't want to say from. You live in the Knoxville, Tennessee area. I'm originally from the Asheville, North Carolina area. Like, it's like literally like stone's throw, basically. Like we grew up in that same kind of area. And we grew up in this industry working that market, and we can go back to the whole door knocking, taking your lead, having to get out and go kneecap to kneecap. And now we're in this environment of mostly virtual, mostly digital. You've made some shifts over the course of your 2 decades now in this industry. I want to start off with what is it like to be able to sell life insurance today that some of our colleagues, some of the experience, because this is for you experienced agents, you've had some time in the industry, you're just not getting the results that you want to get. You've embraced that. What is that doing for your agency today, embracing the way that we can sell life insurance right now compared
Well,
to the past?
well, I would say thank goodness that you're a part of the industry now, as a part of the industry when we were back in the day. Because I remember when I first got started into it, I was driving 2 or 3 hours one way to go see a family and pray to God that they're going to be there, knock on the door, and hopefully they show up. And if they didn't, you're in a Taco Bell parking lot or something like that, making calls to reschedule an appointment. Hopefully they show up later that evening. Just thank goodness we don't have that because of technology, the evolution of the business and the industry and how it's evolved is that now, Edward, we can hire part-time moms all across the United States, and they can go do this business and make them an extra $500 a month. It makes all the difference in the world to them and their kids. And I just think because they can do it from the comfort of their own home. And Zoom anybody in and feel safe doing the industry. I think that's important too, because, I don't know about you, but I've ran a lot of appointments at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and just like, I hope somebody doesn't shoot me when I go up here because, it said beware of dog or, no trespassing, yet, you got to go see that client and it's dark and you can't tell if the mailbox is there. And I just love it for the agents now that they have the security that that's not the case anymore. So as much as it is security for the people and the families that we go see, it's not that. And then think about too, time and money. Like you're not driving. Like the time component of that.
Yeah, that's the good old windshield time.
Oh,
Like I mean, you can learn a lot,
oh,
right? Like you're listening to CDs or cassettes or like
everything.
whatever.
Yeah, 8 tracks in my day. Yeah. So
But it's not as profitable as like being able to have a full tight schedule of appointment after appointment. And I can do my training in this 2 hour window over here,
hey,
right?
it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing all the time you can save. Now, I will say a part of that grew me because I got to listen to so many,
True.
different cassettes at the time, that people really grew me in the industry. So I say that was a very concentrated time. But now,
And let's pause for a moment. Gen Alpha, a cassette is this small plastic thing that you put into a tape
yeah,
player.
that is
Well,
true.
actually, if we start
I don't even know what
explaining
it is. Yeah. I don't even know what it is. And then you had to rerun the right way. So,
but it's that ideal, and I want to hit on this point for a second. as you were growing in the industry, that continual self development, right? Working on yourself, working on your sales training. I'm sure those are some of the things that you're listening to. It still happens today. Like for your agents today who are now able to go out, they get their leads, they're able to book appointments. It's gonna be a Zoom call. They're able to book more appointments in a shorter amount of time. What are you having them train on to get not only proficient, but to get good and to get great at doing it this way? Because you've had to learn some things too. Because
Yeah.
again, you didn't grow up in the industry doing that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of experienced agents that are still a little bit fearful about kind of like, well, I'm just so used to door knocking. And I like my kneecap to
Right.
kneecap. Like they get it. They want to do it a way that can be more effective and more efficient. But we get into our habits. How did you, as you were making that transition, uh, how did you kind of set that aside and like, okay, I know that's how I used to do it, but here's how I'm going to do it so that now my agents, my agency can learn how to do it this way.
Well, we have something set up in our group right now. It's a virtual office. So we have a saying in this industry, and it was even back in the day, the business is way more caught than taught.
Hmm.
So we have people that will book appointments in front of an entire group of people so they can watch somebody doing it. And I remember it even really relates back when I first started my agency, is like I'd invite everybody in on Saturday mornings and say, hey, you watch me make dials. This was even when we were doing it in person. And I wouldn't sit there and just teach them the phone script. I'd just let them watch me work. Because in other words, they could catch what we were doing because it's way more posture. It's way more not just what you say, but it's how you say it,
Yep.
right? In the posture you have behind it. And, I just think that's such a valuable tool that we're doing now virtually, where it can be broadcasted all across the United States, where people can watch our brightest and best do it and they catch the business. So that's a tool and a resource that we take advantage of each and every day, like 5, 6 days a week. We have that office open so people can see that.
So your
It's
agents
huge.
all across the country, they can plug in, and I love that because we certainly did it when we were doing in person phone teams,
Right.
where someone who's new gets to just watch someone make
Yeah.
dials.
Yeah.
Right? It's not I don't have I can hand you the script and just watch me do it, and then when you're ready, just do it. Like,
Right.
yeah, there's not much. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like you have this agency that can plug in from all across the country. How many agents does your agency have currently? Like
Well,
active agents or writing agents,
right
whatever
now,
number you
right
guys
at
use.
roughly 400 active agents there.
400 active agents. They're spread out all across the country.
Yeah.
I mean, we just talked about best year was last year, over 700,000. How much volume are you guys doing to generate that kind of revenue for your company? But I'm sure your agents
Right.
are making a strong income as well.
Oh yeah, and it's just that is part of the value of this business right now is I get to see others win and win at a high level, and our volume right now is a little bit over 1 million a month.
Million a month.
So I'm excited about
So
that. I'm
a
excited about that for
million in
them.
annual premium volume and your own track. I had a mentor a long time ago that said, if you build your business correctly, and I want to transition to talk about how do I choose the correct business to build. But if you build your business correctly in this industry, the amount of volume that you do per month of placed business should be plus or minus some percentage points, depending on how you scale, should be the gross revenue that your business brings into your company. Right. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny how that
Right. Oh yeah,
tracks.
that does
You know,
track.
you're
Yeah.
saying,
I see what you're
okay,
saying.
we're typically doing about $1 million a month in volume, and we're on track for this year to have gross revenue. Now, we say gross revenue because you got some staff,
Sure.
you
Yes.
got expense. Like this is a business, guys. So
Right.
it's not like Chris, you're taking $1 million
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuffing
Just
it in your
stuffing it in my
pocket.
pocket.
And
No
like
sir.
that. It is still a business, but like that's one of those ways to kind of test and see, am I doing this right?
Hmm.
Like the amount of volume that I'm sending up to the carrier, the commission I get is that I'm adding value to them by making sure that volume goes up. They're rewarding me
Yeah.
with that commission, and I can track, am I doing this correctly based off of that little metric? I will always be grateful to the mentor that told me that because it's one of those things that if I see that number get off, I'm like, huh, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
What
Yeah.
do
No,
I
I
need
love
what do
that.
I need
Yeah.
to
That's
look
so
at,
good.
take a look
Yeah.
at? All right, so let's talk about this. You you've never been a captive agent, correct? Because
No.
we talk to
Yeah.
captive agents
Yep.
and
No.
independent agents. So you've never been a captive agent. You've been independent since you started.
Hmm.
How did you start? Like what attracted you? Was it a job
Like
ad?
the
Was it
industry?
a friend? How did you 20 years ago? Like it was a
Well,
little different then, right?
it's simple. I was. You ever been sick and tired of being sick and tired? I was 32 years old with a college degree, and why I had that degree at the time I didn't know because I was working at a cross dock, and I remember I was dating a lady at the time, way sharper than I was, and I was praying that she would stick around with me, and I started just talking to her. She was in copier sales, and she was I think you'd be good at sales, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm good at talking to people because I'm very much an introvert, right?
Okay.
We share that passion of introverts, right? And just started talking about what she was doing in the industry and stuff like that. And I realized I started writing down things that I was looking for.
Mhm.
And I wrote down no cap. I didn't want any cap on my income.
Okay.
I wanted
That
if I
has a
was
different meaning these days, I think.
well, probably
No
yeah
cap.
yeah
Like
yeah
there's a
yeah
different. Anyway, sorry,
right.
I threw you off. Keep
No,
going.
no, you're good. And another thing, I wanted something I believed in. So whatever product or service that I represented, I wanted to believe in it,
Mhm.
right? And that was huge for me. And the other thing was, I just wanted to be able to leave a legacy, whatever I did do, right?
Gotcha.
I thought that was huge for me as well when I got in the industry. I'd lost my father when I was young. He was 10 years old, and we lost his business when he died in a car accident. And I just knew the future. I wanted to leave a legacy for a family someday, right?
Gotcha.
Even though I didn't have that family yet, I just saw a vision for that in the
Yeah,
future.
because you had experienced that as a 10-year-old. You
Yep,
saw your dad build a business. So that entrepreneur, that business ownership was probably a part of who you were, right? Because you've
right.
seen that growing up. You've had that loss, so you wanted something that there was no lid, no cap on what you could potentially do from an income standpoint. You wanted it to add value, and you were able to kind of tie that to what you personally had to experience. And then you just wanted it to be an industry that would allow that growth to be able to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was looking for that, and I answered an ad. It was a newspaper ad, so a lot of you won't even know. It's like, what's a newspaper ad? It was a newspaper ad for a job back then. It said mortgage protection sales leads, 75K plus a year. Well, I was making $42,000 a year with
Okay.
overtime back then at my
So
cross dock,
good.
right?
Like
So I
okay,
was like,
yeah.
I could count, do the math there. It said plus, so it indicated there must be something else, and it was key. It said mortgage protection. I remember when I went and talked to the person that interviewed me to get in the industry, and he just told me what it does for families. And I was like, man, it came full circle. It's not what I was originally like. Hey, I knew that's what I was looking for.
Not the plan to sell, but
Right, yeah. And then it came back, and it's like, man, I really can believe in that because that would have really helped my father out, us as kids. My sister was 16, I was 10 at the time. It just helped us because we lost our home, we lost his business that he had fought so hard for his kids for. So it just resonated with me that it had those qualities to it.
yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, that's what attracted you at the time. And I think that attraction, whether we're talking about 20 years ago or today, I mean, that is still there. So you worked for one group, like you got hired by that individual that you talked to, you went and you started working there. You got to where you were making a high six-figure
mhm.
income,
Yeah.
right? Um, but then you came to that point, and this, I'm speaking to those experienced agents who you're like, look, I love this industry. I love the value that I bring. I know what I do, there's significance. If you haven't read Joe Jordan's book, right?
Right.
Living a life of significance. Like
Yeah.
this is significant work that we do, but you weren't getting the fullness of the results that you were looking for. And so you start to say, what else might I be able to do? And so I'm sure there are some experienced agents out there who they're like, I love this industry. I actually like the people that I work with, but like I know there's more. I
Yeah.
know there's different levels. You just talked about going from in your first decade, 170 was the top. You made a switch at the decade mark, at the
Hmm.
10-year mark.
Yeah.
What was that process like? What research did you do? What were you looking for? How did you kind of plan that out so that when you made the move, you moved to a place where now you're top year so far over 701,000,
Yeah.
over 701,000 with eyesight set on this year, your 20th year in the industry, having $1 million year. what questions should they be asking? What should they be looking for? How did you make that decision whenever you were going through that process?
Well, I would say this. What really changed it for me, and some of you may be faced with this, had a little boy in '09, had another little boy in 2012. And even though I was a good producer, what happens when I pass away? I started to ask myself that same question.
Mm.
And remember, when I got in the industry, what was the last thing I needed was legacy,
Yeah.
right, Edward?
Yep.
And I really started to ask myself, am I truly building a legacy, me just personally producing? And so I started to look for companies with qualities that had something that was not only could I create the now income, could I go personally produce and create a massive income because I had to make 170 a year because the lifestyle, when it grows to that,
Once you're making it, you can't not make it
you
because you start
cannot
spending. Yeah, yeah.
not make it anymore
If you
because
were making 170, you got to make 170 again.
I was smart enough to marry that girl that I was telling you I was dating earlier, and I married her in '07. So she would not allow me, you know what I mean, to go backwards in that in a good way, right?
Yeah.
And so I started looking for something, what's duplicatable, what's something that I could do and create that income instantaneously if I go out there and ran appointments, just like I was doing before. But also, could I hire and retain people that came on board with me? Could they be profitable with me?
All right. So, and let me slow you down a little bit. So, number one was it had to be something that allowed you to go out and produce
Yes.
like you were able to produce before. You personally own your own pen if you had to, right?
Yep.
All right. Number two, as you were getting into, that was it being able to be shared with agents so that you could duplicate what you were doing.
Right.
All right. So those are the first two. Keep going. I just want to make sure
No.
that they're getting this
Right.
because this is gold stuff right
Yeah.
here. Because most people just how many agents have you talked to over the years who have jumped from one green grass field here to this green grass field here to this green like they're just jumping all around and they don't really even know what they're looking for in the first place.
So
And
good.
you made that outline for yourself. You said, okay, number one, I'm looking for this. Number
Yep.
two, I'm looking for this. Keep going.
No.
Flesh out that list for them.
I love it. And really it was the duplicatability of this right here. I looked at several companies and I looked at what companies out there had a process behind their business that they could go in and for the agents that they brought on board, they could duplicate business for them. In other words, did they have a process in place to put those agents in front of clients and prospects? And they had to be able to do that, but not only do that, them not actually looking to profit off of it was key for me too, because the company I came from, I saw some of that, right? They had profited off of it, and kudos to them. No qualms with that right there. People get in business for different reasons, but I wanted to
That
duplicate
was a
it.
choice for you, though.
It
You
was a
said, like,
huge choice.
I want to work with a group that they make money on selling more life insurance, not on the internal systems.
Right, not on
Okay.
the leads.
All right.
Yeah, it was such a huge component. And, because I realized for me to be my authentic self, I had to believe, remember, it goes back to I had to believe in the product. But then I had to believe in the company that I joined. I had to believe in what their back end process was.
Yeah.
Because if I knew I didn't, there would all be that internal conflict of who I brought aboard. And I didn't want that. I just wanted something that if you were my brother, and I'm like, hey, I would want to share it with you, right?
Makes sense.
And so, found that, and then we took advantage of it. We built our first agency in our first 4 months, and so we just continued that process and just sharing that process with people again and again.
And so making the switch from one company to another, you did your research, you plotted out like here's what I want, and I'm sure you interviewed who you like. This is one thing we do a lot of recruiting where we like say we're going to interview people, but I've
Right?
gotten
Yeah.
back to the place now, or I've not gotten back, but gotten to the place now where I'm like I'm not doing the interviews anymore. I'm having partnership discussions.
Sure. Love
Like,
it.
are you going to be a partner of mine,
Mhm.
and am I going to be a partner of yours?
Yep.
You have to bring your 50% of 100% of 50% of the relationship.
Right.
And I have to bring 100% of 50% of the relationship. Otherwise, this thing ain't going to work.
So good.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you did your interviewing. Like they may have been interviewing you, but you're interviewing them to say, is this the place for me? You came over here, and when you first got started at the new organization, was just you and personal production? Did you just step right back into, hey, I was making 170,000 over there. I know I got to do that before as I start to build and to show other people, here's how you can can do this? Is that what you did when you first stepped back in?
Yeah, well, I started to analyze some of the mistakes I'd made in my previous 10 years. So what I did, I didn't just jump back into personal production because I look back in my career, and you'll hear this a lot in this industry, is like one of my greatest mistakes is not recruiting and building a business early enough. And so what I did, I was like, all right, I'm not going to make that mistake. I had to go and fund the business though. And so took a bunch of leads, took some of the cheapest leads in the industry, right? And I went out and just made a ton of phone calls, and I created that now income. And I was running, and I was making $600-700 a week to make that now income. And at the same time, I got an assistant, right? I invested in an assistant. Same time, I invested in a small office because I knew I wanted infrastructure. I wanted something out of my home. That's just me. Keep in mind, it doesn't have to be you. It's just I wanted that structure to be able to attract something too. And then I invested in a recruiting resource because I knew I couldn't just do it all word of mouth. I wanted a resource and something behind the business.
And I like this, and I hope if again you're an experienced agent who is looking to get better results, and you're seeing what's out there, you're looking at the landscape, you're weighing your options like you were doing, and then when you decided to make that move, you actually made that move with a game plan, and not the same game plan that you were doing before.
Right.
Can we repeat that for a couple of different times? Like, don't do the same thing that you
Jot
were
that down.
doing where you were not getting the results you wanted. Like, you're like, so I haven't done this before. I haven't gotten a whole bunch of older leads, made $700-800 a week. I'm going to fund it. I'm going to make sure I can pay my assistant's salary.
Yep.
Right. That's why I'm going out and working this hard. I'm going to make sure that my wife still has the income that she's expecting to be coming in, still coming in. We're going to get an off. We're going to do it differently.
Yes.
Like, the reason that people jump around from green pasture to green pasture is because they go to the other green pasture and they keep doing the same thing they were doing in the other pasture, expecting different results.
Yeah.
And it can look all nice and pretty from a distance, but if you go bringing the same stuff, you're gonna get the same stuff.
Stuff.
So I love that, and that's one of the reasons, because like I said, I know that there's a lot of new energy and young blood in this industry, and we need it. Like, I love that. But I think there is a lot of wasted talent, wasted potential in this industry. There's people who care about this industry, care about you may be one of them. You care about the product that you sell. It's just like, at a certain point, it has to care about you. Maybe that's what you're saying. And that care about you is like, make sure that you can pay your bills. Like, yeah, I want to help my families get out of debt and live tax-free lives, and like, be protected in the event of death, disability, critical, like all that stuff. But like, I'm getting my light shut off.
Yeah. Well,
Hard to sell life insurance whenever you're in that place. And so maybe they need to do and go through a process like you went through.
Well, there's a saying in this industry, you can't lead an army to greatness worried about your cell phone bill, right? And we've heard that, and it's sometimes, people are like, well, I don't have people attracted to me to do business with me. It's like, if you need people, you can't lead people. Remember that. If you need people, you can't lead people. And what I wanted to do is create a culture where I didn't need anybody that came aboard. However, I wanted a partnership, and I love what you said. I didn't want to be anybody's boss, right? And I wanted to partner up, but I wanted them to be attracted to the person they were being in business with. And I knew I couldn't be worried about my cell phone bill doing it. Happy to say I never made less than 10 grand a month in income in the 10 years that I've been here, because we set that standard of personally producing to fund our agency really quick in a massive way, right? And so profitability was always there from day one. It wasn't a ramp up period.
Yeah.
Some people are like, well, how long does it take to ramp up? I was like, how quick you want to work?
When can you pick up the phone and dial? Like,
Right,
if you're
right.
especially if you're experienced, like,
Yeah.
you've dialed before, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's go
Let's go.
tomorrow. Like, I mean, it doesn't
Giddy
have
up.
to be. Man, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's just, again, there are so many people. Like, I am so grateful that when I was 2 years into this industry, working for a captive organization, that like I was on my way out. I was like, this isn't like, I want to sell
I
life
can imagine.
insurance. I see the benefit to clients. I know that there's value here. Like, I gotta be able to put gas in my car, and
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful that there were people like you, who said, hey, come check out something on the independent side. There's some great stuff that happens in the captive world. There's some great organization. Not speaking negatively about captive agencies at all. I just know that there are multiple ways to make a great income while adding value, living that significant career life by being in this industry. I know some of you who maybe just be tuning in. You think I'm like interviewing Matthew McConaughey right now, but this is the Chris Cook. Chris, do you have where can they follow you, find out more about you, your organization, what you're doing? Instagram, Facebook. We'll put. I think I can't see it right now, but I think that's down below us right now. They can come take a look in the show links. But anything that you want to share?
My wife probably is more of the Instagram person. She probably have more insight to put out there for anybody else.
We'll get with Lauren and say, hey, like we'll get the information and we'll put it down. It's probably floating around us right now.
Probably is
while we're recording.
Yeah, so, probably is.
Follow this guy. Find out more if you have questions for you. If you're an experienced agent that maybe you're going through something like that, reach out to this guy. He could be a valuable resource. I love the fact that this industry, people seem to genuinely want to help and mentor, not always with an agenda, like to try to get something for themselves, but like, hey, if there's a quick tip I can give you or help you out. It's one of the reasons that I do life insurance today. I hope that this is beneficial to you. Share with someone who maybe that struggling life insurance agent, maybe they're in year 5 or 7 and just like, how can I do something different? Share this with them. Let them hear from Chris. And see what it can do for their business and their careers. I'm Edward Pritchett. This is Life Insurance Today. We'll talk to you soon.